Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. And?
Misinformation.
There we go. She never says that. We always have to do 2 takes. It's like the first time. So today we are driving and we haven't done a misinformation episode in a while. We're going to do an early Mother's Day, shopping trip, I guess, because Lane is out of town next weekend, so.
Yes.
So anyway, we're celebrating Mother's Day early. It's really early this year anyway. But I wanted to say the thumbnail of this episode, we're going to talk about the positives and negatives for being a couple with a Tesla. And we haven't got the shirts ourselves yet because they're so brand new, but they're on the Dr. Know-It-All knows at itemorder.com. Anyway, it's in the description. You can just check it out. But really cool shirts, FSD Beta Tester and FSD Toughest Critic. You can get either of the shirts in either gender or whichever way you want to do it. So it's very cool. Dan, thank you so much. He worked on the shirts, and it's our first couple shirt, so we're like super happy. Anyway, so we wanted to talk today about some problematic things. I guess we'll just start with the big one, which was the fight. Yeah. So we'll start with the fight. We had a fight. I'll let you say.
Oh, you want me to?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we're driving and we were actually coming home really late at night because we had been out to dinner. There wasn't very much traffic. And okay, let me set the stage. You don't interrupt me. You can say things after, but don't, like, if I say something different than what you think happened, wait until the end.
I'm shutting up.
Okay. All right. So we're on a 3-lane, I guess it's actually a 6-lane road with a median in the middle, and we're in the middle lane of our 3 lanes. That's not true. So we're in the middle of the 3 lanes and in. Okay. So there's a car from the left that kind of shoots out across traffic and gets to the median part, and they're kind of doing that. I'm going to kind of hesitate a little, but not really stop kind of thing, because we're in the middle lane, so they had a whole lane that they could go into, but it was just kind of, we were coming, and so they were hesitating a little bit, and the car, the Tesla, was driving along, and it started to brake or slow down. It started to slow down, and then all of a sudden it braked really freaking hard. There was nobody else around. There was just this car who had a lane they could go into, and us driving along, and it braked so hard that it threw everything out of the back into the front. And I screamed. I upset John because I screamed really loud because it scared me, because I'm used to the phantom braking and it kind of putting on brakes and then going. But this time it actually slammed on brakes. So I felt like he had enough time to engage and say, okay, that's not what should be happening here, and just kind of hit the gas pedal. Which is, if I'm driving the car and it does that phantom braking, I just automatically do that. And I say, no, you can keep going, that kind of thing. But it was very upsetting for me. Like, and I've mentioned before, I get really car sick. I'm really just too aware of things going on around, and so things like that really rattle me, and it takes me a long time to get back to being okay when something like that happens. And so I was upset because John did the thing where he's like, just let the car do what it's going to do. I want to see what it's going to do, and I felt like in that situation, if there had been someone behind us, they would have eaten our back end up so bad. Like, they would have just like really, it would have been a really bad accident. And so I was really scared. I screamed. Then I was upset at John because I felt like that was a situation that he should have taken over a half a second faster than maybe he did. And with all of this talking, this was literal seconds that all this was going on. So it's hard for me to be upset with him completely.
You sure were.
It was very scary. I mean, everything. It slammed on brakes in the middle of a highway.
Well, yeah, major
okay,
road.
now
anyway,
you do your thing.
No, it's fine. The only thing I will say is that I did know that there was nobody behind us, so it totally was safe for it to do what I wanted to do. So that's number one, because if it hadn't been,
safe just because nobody was there.
Immediately stepped on the accelerator. But the big thing was, the car does a little bit minor phantom braking sometimes, as I'm sure a lot of people know, and it'll kind of slow down maybe like 5 miles an hour, and you're like, well, that's annoying and stupid, but it doesn't really do anything. So it started to do that, and I thought, okay, and then it's going to pick back up, and then it slammed the brakes on. So in instead of immediately taking over, waited like an extra half a second because I thought the car was going to then start accelerating again, and it didn't. It decelerated really rapidly. So yeah, it was pretty funky, not great. But anyway, so it led to unhappiness at the household for a period of time afterwards. Because of course I was upset because I was like, "Geez, why are you yelling at me?" And I was like, "I'm driving the car. I've got it."
I did scream. It was one of those really annoying kind of like, not just a like John. You know, it was an annoying.
My ears were ringing. It was that loud. So
I was rattled. I was rattled because I was thinking about, you know, what would happen in the circumstance that somebody actually had been behind us. And I know that John says, okay, I would have taken over faster because I would have been aware. And, you know, there's just a difference. I'm supposed to turn there.
No, just ignore that. I don't know what it's doing. It's decided that you can't go on here and you need to go.
Okay.
I think it's just because there's a red light.
Okay.
So anyway, yeah, so it can cause some interesting problems. But this sort of catapulted us. And you know, I guess I've said this before. Some people are beta testers and some people are not beta testers.
Yeah.
And it's quite clear that our personalities are opposites in that. I'm very comfortable with software screwing up. I'm used to it. It is weird when you're driving a 3,500 pound, 4,000 pound car and you know, going at high speeds. You're a little more careful about it, but I'm sort of used to that. I also drive the car a lot.
Yeah, I
like,
think I got
in
in to drive the car today, and John had this little extra thing in front of the steering wheel, which my initial thoughts is I don't like it. But
she hadn't driven the car. It's been at least 6 weeks since we installed it. She hadn't even driven the car in that long. So.
Yeah. So obviously I'm not as comfortable with the car as John is. I am trying to test out. So I'm not using beta right now because I need to turn it back on. But it makes me have to concentrate so hard when it's driving because I'm so scared it's gonna like do something wrong and I need to react really fastly, and that scares me.
I think that's worth also pointing out that when I started with the beta software, so now it's on again. This is a really weird road because it's like a highway, but it's got traffic lights and it's got these side entrances. It's a really, really awful road. And state of Georgia, you need to fix this. It needs to become Interstate 185 or something.
You're going
like
off
that.
on one of your rabbit holes.
Yeah, I'm going off on a rabbit hole. All right, sorry. But anyway, the fact that I drive it and use full self-driving all the time means that I really have a pretty good sense most of the time when it's going to make a mistake and how it's going to make a mistake. And so I'm comfortable with how, and these mistakes I've said before, they're not generally emergency mistakes. They're almost always convenience mistakes. Like it doesn't get into a better lane, or it slows down a little awkwardly at a yield sign, or, you know, things like that. So I kind of know that and I'm more comfortable with it. Whereas Lane, because this is not her daily driver, is not as used to that sort of thing. So I think that's it's an issue. But I wanted to cast ourselves back a couple of years to December. Well, it was earlier 2020, I guess, maybe September of 2020. Back when it only took like 2 months to get a Tesla. When we made the decision about purchasing a new car, that was also a little, you know, there's some friction in that too. Because number one, because it was her Mini Cooper that we were going to have to give up, so she was sad about that. still salty about that. But also,
I learned how to drive stick shift just to get that car.
That's how much.
I mean, that was my bucket list car.
It was.
And now I'm driving yours.
I know. I feel bad about that. Well, maybe when, I think Mini does actually have an electric version now, so maybe someday. Anyway, so we're not buying any more gas engine anything. I mean, lawnmowers, nothing is going to be a gas engine. As soon as the Mazda's done, and we get, I guess, the Cybertruck at this point.
Have we made that decision?
I made that decision. Okay, here's another potential source. I hate gas engines. Hate them. Like, since I was a child, I hated gas engines. Didn't want to get a car.
Is this going to stop?
Yes, it'll stop. Sorry, there's people stopping in front of us. You do have to jiggle the steering wheel, though. All right. You got to do it more. There you go. All right. I know.
I'm holding on to it.
I know. It's very... Come on, Elon. You guys really need to get it with the camera thing, because we really, really don't need to jiggle the steering wheel anymore if we're actually paying attention. It just
I'm holding the steering wheel.
I know. But you have to, like... Anyway. That's a really annoying thing about full self-driving. We're getting sidetracked though. But anyway, so the financial aspect of making a decision to buy a car that was double the cost of any car we had ever purchased before, like over double the cost, it was more than twice the cost of any car we'd ever bought before, was terrifying. And I think that was stressful for both of us. I think on the positive end of things...
Actually, I remember it being less stressful for me because I didn't even ask you how much it cost. Because I felt like it was obviously a decision that you were like, no, I'm going to do this. And I was like, well, he knows.
I think part of that...
I don't know.
...is also, you're out of autopilot, by the way. I think part of it is that my YouTube channel was starting to take off at that point, and I said, look, the deal is I'm going to pay the cost of the monthly, loan payments out of that channel, and so I think that made it somewhat easier.
Oh, I think
less risk involved.
I guess that's right. I was like, well, if you're going to buy another vehicle and you understand what you're going to do with it, and that you weren't going to be using it heavily for the channel and things like that, then yes.
Right. So anyway, I think all of those go in, but it was scary for me. In retrospect, the fact that no maintenance, especially now that gas has gone up, it's just amazing how much money we save driving this car in terms of maintenance and fuel and everything. So it's definitely the correct decision in retrospect, but it was pretty scary at the time for doing it.
No, it's definitely changed. Like when I go to get gas in the Mazda, it's like almost $60 to fill it up, and I keep letting it almost run out of gas because I forget that it takes gas, and I actually have to worry about those kind of things. So
it's a weird experience. Like, I haven't been to a gas station in when we were in Austin, when we went to GigaFest, was the last time I was at a gas station because we rented a gas car there. It's crazy, and I don't miss it 1 second ever. I hate gas stations. So anyway, I just have a passionate hatred of gas engines, and so this has been building for my entire life since I was just a little child. When I was a kid, I actually was just convinced that I was never going to buy a car because I hated gas engines so much. But of course, reality and families and having to commute to work and things like that got in the way, and you got to do what you got to do. So anyway, much happier.
Well, I think that and something this can kind of lead into is the fact that you're such a you're not the happiest driver ever, because you still get frustrated with other drivers, but it makes you you're really happy it's really happy. You're really happy driving the car and going places. And the other night, actually, when we had that little spat, you were like, well, Lane, you could drive when we go places, and it kind of morphed into and I was like, well, every time we start to go, you literally jump in the car. Like, you literally jump in the car to drive somewhere. And so today when we were headed out, I was like, I'll drive if you want me to drive. And actually you were really happy. Like, you got over there and you were super happy about it. But I guess I assumed that you were really happy to get in the car, and maybe you were making an assumption that, okay, well, I just need to drive everywhere we go. I don't know.
I guess. I'm also just happy. I don't know. It's a year and a half owning this car, and I'm still I smile every time I get in it. I mean, that's.
It does make you very happy.
What are you gonna say?
Yeah.
I've never had any car that I was like, I'm happy to get in this car. Yes, for a little while. There's always the honeymoon period, but this thing has just lasted. So I think that's really cool, and I think what you were going to say is I'm a more chill driver, generally speaking.
Yeah, and we've talked about this several times on road trips. You're just so much more fun to be around because it's like, oh, we can go to the bathroom and we can stop and get something to eat, and it's not like race car pit stop kind of thing. So
go to the REI in Charlotte, which we always end up stopping at that one when we go see my parents. So we go wander through the REI store while we're waiting for it to charge up.
Yeah, it's a lot more chill. Actually, it makes it just long enough to where I start getting antsy because I'm like, okay, we need to get back on the road, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know, did you want to talk about something else, or Hayden?
No, let's talk about Hayden.
Yeah, so here's the last piece of this interesting puzzle, which we don't know if it's going to cause tension or not, but we've got 4 boys. 3 of them already, obviously, they're adults. They know how to drive. We've got a fourth one, the youngest, who is going to be 15 in July, which means that he is eligible to get his learner's permit. And in Georgia, you have to have your learner's permit for a year and drive and then do your tests and all that stuff. But anyway, so he'll be starting to drive our cars come July. Because he's not one of those kids who's like, yeah, I'll get it eventually. I think it's going to be his birthday. He's going to be there. They'll be like, what do you want for your birthday? A trip to the DMV. So anyway, it's going to be really interesting, like how comfortable we both are with letting him drive cars, period, because that's always terrifying. But
yeah, you're going to do that better than me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, pretty much. I don't know about Hunter, but everybody else. I've always been the one who's taken him for the first couple of weeks. Because again, I'm more comfortable with that sort of beta testing thing. And more or less, the full self-driving acts like a driver who's not that experienced yet.
Well, I think there's some assumption, and it was on my part, and I didn't realize it until we were just recently discussing it, that I just assumed we're going to teach Hayden how to drive in the Mazda. Like we need to teach him how to drive in the Mazda. And then I was like, well, you know, actually with him, I mean, we need to teach him on both, because I feel like
they have very different driving profiles.
They do, and I feel like the gas one is kind of like, okay, this is the basic, like this is how what you do.
It's such a nice car. It's really sad that we think that way.
No, I don't mean it like it's the basics. Yeah. It's a really nice car. I really enjoy driving, except for it doesn't accelerate like the Tesla. But it I feel like it's the basics as far as, okay, these are the things that you do. This is what you pay attention to. This is what you look at on your, you know, just think about it. I mean, you have this little thing at the steering wheel that I think you should take out because I don't particularly care for it. But, you know, you have to look over, you have to glance over to see your speed. Or, well, hell, just you can turn on beta and it will tell you your speed's already there. It's just a completely different learning aspect, and so I feel like that he needs to learn the basics in the Mazda, and then kind of, you know, but it's important for him to learn, you know, because of his age and, you know, what's going to happen, you know, in his generation of things with the EV cars, that he learn how to deal with the EV as well.
Right.
But so it's something we haven't, you know, it's something that we haven't really discussed, but I guess, you know, it's coming up really quickly, you know.
I'm just trying to figure it out. That's Kenley, our son. That would be really weirdly coincidental if it was. Yeah, so I think the difference in the driving profiles between a gas car and an EV car, and now it is kind of important for us to teach him how to drive on both, because we are going to be living through a transition period with both types of cars. But then the other aspect of it is, I hadn't really thought about this until just today, but it's the full self-driving aspect. It's like, so the car, if we have full self-driving beta or whatever, he has access to that when he goes and drives on his own. So how do we deal with that? That's a really interesting aspect of, and if anybody knows, if you've taught your kids on full self-driving beta,
we would love to hear about
definitely.
It. Yeah,
drop comments.
Well, the other part is that he's not getting a Tesla. We're not giving it. He's not getting a Tesla to drive. But will he though? Because I guess my thought on that is we're not going to give him the Tesla to just drive anywhere. And you were like, if after he's been driving for a while, why not? And I was like,
do you think he's going to go to? I mean, he's going to want the Tesla to go to like the winter formal or prom or whatever. And when we go on road trips, obviously he's going to have to take the wheel for a period of time. Now we'll be in the car at that point, but so, you know, it will be not just teach him how to drive a gas car and an electric car, but also how to teach him how to.
So I'm going to let the teenager car
drive with the teenager.
Be driven by the teenager.
But I mean, because of the fact that he will eventually be driving the car with full self-driving capability, we have to teach him how to drive the car with full self-driving capability. And that's an interesting, weird, and very like stressful.
I think we just say the Mazda.
But you can't.
Like,
okay.
Mazda.
Anyway, I will be interested to know if other people have had the experience already, because we've just sort of gapped it where the next youngest kid is 21, so we just haven't had to deal with anybody learning how to drive a Tesla yet. So
yeah, it's interesting to think about. Yeah,
I think in my mind, at least as a rough guess, it would be he's going to drive.
Why is it slowing down right here? Why is it slowing down right here?
I think there's a light here from the past. Yeah, Well, there was crosswalk. There's a weird thing. There's like crosswalks painted on a highway. I told you this is a really, really weird road. So anyway, but I think what it would be is that while he's got a learner's permit, which means that he will be under our supervision, right? He can't drive by himself for that year. We'll teach him how to drive the gas car, the electric car, but we will not let him do full self-driving until we're very comfortable that he's understands how to drive himself first. I think,
yeah,
in
19,
my mind,
20,
yeah,
when he's not
19 or 20. But we need to do it before he graduates out and drives on his own. I think that will be important, because if he's driving on his own, we have no control over what he does. He can obviously just turn on the full self-driving if he wants to. So anyway, so yeah, so any other thoughts while we're thinking about this?
No.
So yeah, so Teslas cause tension, I guess. Yeah, disruptive technology.
I guess we should have actually said that, you know, some people probably don't have any tension because they're probably, you know, have, you know, spouses have 2 Teslas, and so they drive their own, and they're really comfortable with it, so they interchange, and, you know, that's really, you know, just not a dynamic that's in our household right now.
But I have to say, when we were in Austin for the cyber rodeo, we met a lot of Tesla owners there, obviously, and there were many, many people, women and men, you know, gender, whatever, that the opposite, their partner would be, I don't know what it's doing. It's just decided. It's not in full self-driving mode.
No, I just went out because when it tried to go over for no reason.
But anyway, there were a lot of people who said that their partner was not nearly as into it, or didn't drive the Tesla, or other things. So it's an interesting dynamic. Yes, it sees that a car's up there. It tends to brake more aggressively. I told you, she's not used to driving with the beta thing. I'm much more relaxed. She's much more stressed about it. It just takes a while. And that is something, if you haven't driven...
I'm trying to learn.
If you haven't driven with this full self-driving stuff, it really does take getting used to. Because it is like sitting in the driver's seat where you feel like you're in charge and you should be in charge. Like, I'm in the passenger seat and I'm like, whatever, it's fine, right? Because I'm used to not driving in the passenger seat. But in the driver's seat, there is this feeling of like, I should be in control, I'm responsible. And you have to let go of that, and it's really hard. And even when I go away, when, again, going back to Austin, we were gone for, 4 or 5 days. We were gone, and then I came back and drove the Tesla home, and it took me several, tens of miles before I got back to being comfortable with it. So it really is, I think of it like climbing. I do a lot of climbing, and we go, you climb up a certain distance, and suddenly your brain's going like, don't do this, you're gonna fall, you're gonna die. And you have to climb enough to get over that height fear to be able to get yourself comfortable. It's the same kind of thing with full self-driving, is you have to just do it fairly consistently in order to overcome the fear and to be used to it. So
I'll go along with that. I'll also say, and I know you're trying to close it out, but I'll also say that from the first time you put me in here, and when was that, when you first got the beta?
That was October of last year.
Okay, so October. So it actually has been a little bit.
Yeah.
There is so much difference.
Yeah.
And so much difference from my initial reactions and feelings on what it was doing. It's a little bit harder for me actually being in the driver's seat, but just so many developments and just what's the right word? Just improvements.
And if you didn't catch it, Elon Musk has hinted that he said a big upgrade is probably going live this coming week. So I think that probably is going to be the single stacked version 11 of the software, and that is going to be huge. And speaking of, all of a sudden we'll go from the highway being kind of expected and me knowing exactly how it's going to behave to it's going to behave differently. So it'll be really interesting to there's going to be a couple steps forward, a couple steps back at that point when we make these major changes. So it'll be really interesting to see how differently the car drives when it's on the beta version of the software on the highway. So, yeah. Anyway, all right. Other thoughts? All right, so definitely let us know in the comments what you think, whether you've had tension in the family, or if you've had kids who've learned to drive with a Tesla, and especially with some sort of full self-driving, whether it's the beta or the old autopilot or whatever. We'd just be really interested to find out. So in the meantime, everybody have a lovely weekend, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.